Hello lovelies, thank you for joining me for another episode of Frightening Fridays here on Questrified. My name is Serafina, and today we're going to be discussing the case of the Hillside Stranglers. So let's get right into it so we can discuss it in the comments. The case of the Hillside Stranglers is chilling. In a matter of 4 months, 10 young girls were murdered in brutal fashion. This case is not just horrific in nature, but what one of the killers tried to do to avoid charges was just ridiculous. Kenneth Bianchi was born May 22, 1951 in Rochester, New York to an alcoholic sex worker who gave him up for adoption 2 weeks after his birth. In August 1951, he was adopted by Nicholas Bianchi and his wife Frances. He was their only child. Like David Berkowitz, after his adoption, Kenneth was a troubled child, perhaps one that was born bad. From an early age, he became a compulsive liar. He would go into daydream-like trances, and a doctor diagnosed him at 5 years old with petit mal seizures. He had behavior problems and was prone to anger. Kenneth's father died of pneumonia in 1964. And Kenneth refused to show any emotion. After high school graduation, he married his high school sweetheart. The marriage lasted 8 months. She left him without explanation, supposedly. Kenneth dropped out of college and ended up as a security guard at a jewelry store. He would steal from his place of employment. The Alphabet murders occurred in and around Rochester from 1971 to 1973. 3 young girls, Carmen Colon, Wanda Wolkowitz, and Michelle Mayenza, were kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered. Kenneth was never charged for these crimes, but is suspected to this day of having committed them. In 1977, Kenneth moved to Los Angeles, California, and started spending time with his older cousin, Angelo Bono. Before long, the two began working as pimps. Later, in 1977, both Kenneth and Angelo escalated their violent behavior. On October 17, 1977, they assaulted and strangled Yolanda Washington. Her body was found near Ventura Freeway. On October 31st, they assaulted and strangled Judy Miller. Her body was found in the community of Alta Terrace Drive in La Crescenta. November 5th, 1977, they did the same to Lisa Caston. Her body was found near Chevy Chase Country Club. November 9th, 1977, Jane King was their victim. Her body was found near Los Feliz. November 13th, 1977, Dolly Cepeda and Sonia Johnson were assaulted and strangled. Their bodies were found on a hillside near Dodger Stadium. Christina Weckler was neighbors with Kenneth. She was killed and her body found on November 20th, 1977, between Glendale and Eagle Rock. Lauren Wagner suffered tortured, assaulted, and strangled on November 28th, 1977. Her body was found in the hills around Mount Washington. December 13th, 1977, Kimberly Martin was killed. Her body was found in a deserted lot near Los Angeles City Hall. Cindy Huspert lived across from Kenneth. She was murdered on February 16th, 1978, and her body was found midway down a cliff on Los Angeles Crest Highway. After this, the killers went quiet, or at least they were not acting in the Los Angeles area, according to the police. They were half correct. Kenneth and Angelo had parted company, and Kenneth went to Bellingham, Washington. There, he lured Karen Mendick and her roommate Diane Wild into a house he was guarding and killed them by his old methods and assaulted them. Their bodies were found in Karen's car in a secluded spot. DNA evidence was found on one of the girls that traced back to Kenneth. Also, one of the girls left a note behind for her boyfriend in which Kenneth's name was written down. Washington detectives began building a case against Kenneth, while Los Angeles detectives were looking at Kenneth as a suspect for the Hillside Strangler case because he lived at one point next to Christina Weckler and across from Cindy Huspert. This connected Kenneth to 2 victims. The task force in LA sadly already had his name, but never followed up on the tip. Kenneth, who wanted to be a police officer, did ride-alongs with the LAPD and asked questions about the Hillside Strangler. Also asked to be taken to where bodies were found. LAPD detectives flew to Washington to examine the bodies to see if they had the same markings that their victims had. The bodies did have the same signature marks. This convinced the LAPD that Kenneth was at least one of the Hillside Stranglers. They were convinced that there were at least 2 due to body placement. They needed to find Kenneth's partner. Police was able to identify the partner through Kenneth's girlfriend, friend Kelly Boyd. She said that the closest person to Kenneth was his cousin, Angela Bono, in Glendale, California. Facing 12 murder charges, Kenneth malingered, or faked, DID, dissociative identity disorder. He created an alternate identity named Steve Parker. Steve, aka Kenneth, confessed to several of the murders and implicated Angelo. After it was proven that Kenneth was malingering, he pled guilty and cooperated regarding the murders down in Los Angeles and agreed to testify against Angelo. They placed Angelo under surveillance and built their case against him. Angelo committed most of the sexual assaults, and Kenneth did most of the killings. Angelo fathered 8 children in and out of wedlock. He was found out to be a sadist who would tie up his then wife and have sex with her. He used the same ligatures as was on the victims. Angelo's house was used as a place to assault and kill the victims. Angelo maintained his innocence but was found guilty. He eventually died of natural causes. He had a heart attack in prison. Kenneth now claims that he is innocent and is upset that the real killers have gone 40+ years without punishment. He is trying to overturn his confession. There are no signs of him getting out anytime soon. He is serving his time in Washington State. If he were to get out, he'd be transferred to California for crimes committed there. What do you think of Kenneth's newest claims? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you for joining me today. Please take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!